My mother handed out 4 envelopes for a luxury European vacation, deliberately skipping me because I didn't fit her aesthetic. She thought I'd beg to be included. Instead, I booked a solo flight to Japan, turned off my phone, and watched their perfect holiday crumble from 6,000 miles away. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The envelope was cream-colored, heavy cardstock, sealed with actual gold wax. It looked less like a Christmas gift and more like a summons to a royal court, which, knowing my mother, was exactly the point. I sat on the edge of the sprawling white sectional in my parents' living room, a glass of lukewarm eggnog in my hand, watching the scene unfold with a tight knot forming in my stomach. The room smelled of cinnamon pinecones and expensive perfume, Sylvia's signature scent. Everything in the house was curated. The tree wasn't just decorated, it was styled in shades of champagne and blush pink. The wrapping paper was color-coordinated. Even we were coordinated. Sylvia had sent out a suggested palette group chat 2 weeks ago, insisting we all wear neutrals so the candid photos would look cohesive. I was wearing the beige cashmere sweater she wanted, even though it washed me out. I was playing the part. I always played the part. And now, Sylvia announced, clapping her hands together. The sound was sharp, cutting through the soft jazz playing in the background. She stood in front of the fireplace, holding a fan of 4 envelopes. The main event. My sister, Valentina, actually squealed. She was 24 years old, but in moments like this, she reverted to a toddler on a sugar high. She was sitting on the floor by the tree, her arm linked through Rowan's. Rowan, her boyfriend of 2 years, looked suitably handsome and vacant, like a model in a catalog for sailing gear. "This has been in the works for 6 months," Sylvia said, her eyes gleaming. She looked at my father, who was nursing a scotch in the armchair. He gave a weak, encouraging smile. "I wanted this year to be special. I wanted us to create memories that look as beautiful as they feel." She handed the first envelope to my father. Then she walked over to Valentina and Rowan and handed them each one. I sat up straighter, setting my eggnog on the coaster. I waited. Sylvia turned back to the fireplace. She adjusted a stocking. She picked up her wine glass. There was no 5th envelope. The silence in the room stretched, thin and brittle. I looked at the 3 envelopes in their hands. Then I looked at Sylvia's empty hands. Then I looked at the empty space on the coffee table. "Open them," Sylvia urged Valentina, ignoring me completely. "Oh my God," Valentina shrieked, tearing the wax seal. She pulled out a sleek itinerary printed on thick paper. "Amalfi, Positano, Capri. Mom, you didn't." "First class," Sylvia purred. 2 weeks, a private villa in Ravello, a boat charter to Capri for the day. It's the La Dolce Vita experience. Rowan was grinning, reading his own copy. "This is insane, Sylvia, thank you." "We leave on the 28th, Sylvia said, beaming. "Just in time for New Year's Eve on the coast." I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands started to tremble, so I clasped them in my lap to hide it. I cleared my throat. It sounded incredibly loud in the room. "Mom," I said. Sylvia turned to me, her eyebrows raised in a perfect arch, as if she were surprised to find me still sitting there. "Yes, Violet." "I think you missed one," I said, my voice steady despite the pounding in my ears. "Where's mine?" The room went quiet. Valentina stopped jumping up and down. Rowan looked at the floor. My father took a long sip of his scotch. Sylvia didn't flinch. She didn't look embarrassed. She just smiled, that pitying, tight-lipped smile she used when I wore a dress she didn't like or expressed an opinion she found pedestrian. "Oh, honey," she said softly, "there isn't one for you." I blinked. "I don't understand. You're taking the whole family to Italy." "Well," she said, tilting her head, "not the whole family, just the group that fits the vision." "The vision," I repeated. "It's an aesthetic trip, Violet," Sylvia said, as if explaining gravity to a child. Valentina needs content for her launch. I'm trying to rebrand the lifestyle blog. We're going to be doing a lot of photo shoots, a lot of video. It's going to be very curated, high fashion, influencer style. She gestured vaguely at me. I looked down at myself. I was a senior UX designer. I made 6 figures. I was fit, healthy, and I thought I looked perfectly fine. But I wasn't them. I didn't have Valentina's waist-length blonde extensions or Sylvia's ageless, frozen features. I didn't pose for every meal. I ate any food. And, I asked. And, she sighed, you just wouldn't fit the vibe, sweetie. You hate posing. You get impatient with the retakes. You just be standing there in the background. It would throw off the energy. It's better this way. You can stay here, get some work done. You're always so busy with your computer things. I looked at my father. Dad, are you serious? He wouldn't meet my eyes. Your mother planned it, Violet. It's her gift. So I'm excluded from Christmas because I'm not Instagrammable enough? I asked, the hurt finally turning into a cold, hard stone in my chest. Don't be dramatic, Valentina chimed in, clutching her ticket. It's not personal, it's just branding. You'd hate it anyway. We're going to be waking up at 4 a.m. for lighting. Exactly, Sylvia said. It's a work trip, really, a family brand trip. I see, I said. I stood up. The betrayal was so absolute, so casual, that it almost felt physical, like a punch to the gut. They didn't just leave me out, they didn't even think I was worth the lie of an excuse. They just told me straight to my face that I was an aesthetic liability. Well, I said, grabbing my coat, enjoy the vibe. Violet, don't storm off, Sylvia called out as I walked to the door. We can do a late Christmas dinner when we get back, maybe in February. I didn't answer. I walked out into the cold December air, the door clicking shut behind me. That click felt like the end of something. And as I stood there in the dark driveway, listening to their muffled laughter through the window, I realized something else. The betrayal was worse than the exclusion. It was the realization that to them, I wasn't a daughter or a sister. I was a prop that didn't make the cut. The drive back to my apartment was a blur of red taillights and blurred vision. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I was in a state of shock, vibrating with a frequency of rage I hadn't known I possessed. When I got home, I paced. My apartment was quiet. It wasn't a curated space like Sylvia's. It was messy with books, sketches for app interfaces, and souvenirs from my actual travels, a rug from Morocco, a lantern from Turkey, a ceramic bowl from Peru. I threw my keys on the counter and stared at my reflection in the hallway mirror. You wouldn't fit the vibe. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Valentina. Val, don't be mad at Mom. She really stressed about the guest list. But honestly, Vi, you don't even own a white linen sundress. You would have stuck out in the pics. We'll bring you back some limoncello, Roman 20. I stared at the screen, the guest list, for a family vacation. I sat down on my sofa and let the reality wash over me. For years, I had been the unseen engine of this family. Who fixed Sylvia's website when it crashed? Me. Who edited Valentina's college essays so she could get into a decent school? Me. And travel, that was the biggest joke of all. Sylvia and Valentina liked the idea of travel. They liked the photos. They liked the status. But they were functionally incapable of navigating the world. I remembered our trip to Paris 3 years ago. Sylvia had booked a hotel in the wrong arrondissement because it looked cute online, realizing too late it was miles from anything. I fixed it. When Valentina lost her passport in London, I spent 6 hours at the embassy sorting it out while they went to high tea. When Dad got food poisoning in Mexico and couldn't speak to the doctor, I translated because I'd bothered to learn the basics. They viewed travel as a backdrop. I viewed it as a skill. I looked at the calendar on my wall. December 28th to January 12th, they would be gone for 2 weeks. A dark thought began to form in my mind, a realization that felt like a key turning in a lock. They were going to the Amalfi Coast. In the off-season, Sylvia had said private villa. That meant no concierge. They were renting a car? In Italy, Sylvia couldn't drive a stick shift, and Rowan panicked if Google Maps buffered. They didn't speak Italian, not a word, and they were going for content, which meant they would be hunting for illegal drone spots, trespassing for views, and annoying locals. They had excluded the only person who knew how to read a train schedule, the only person who knew that aesthetic villas often came with failing plumbing, and the only person who spoke enough Italian to ask for help. They thought they were cutting dead weight, but they had forgotten one crucial thing. I wasn't the dead weight, I was the anchor, and they had just cut the rope in the middle of a storm. My phone buzzed again, this time a group chat notification, the Amalfi Adventure. Sylvia had added me, presumably by accident or maybe just to rub it in. Sylvia just booked the rental car, got a vintage Fiat for the photos. So cute. The guy said something about the clutch being tricky, but Rowan can handle it, right? Rowan, sure. How hard can it be? I stared at the message, a VinTag. Fiat, on the Amalfi Cliffs, with a tricky clutch. Driven by a man whose driving experience was limited to an automatic Tesla in suburban Florida. I could have typed a warning. I could have told them that the roads in Amalfi are terrifyingly narrow, that manual transmissions on steep cliffs require skill, that tricky clutch is code for you will stall on a hairpin turn. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. You wouldn't fit the vibe. I set the phone down. I didn't type a word. Good luck, Rowan, I whispered to the empty room. I went to my laptop and opened a new browser window. If I wasn't going to Italy, I wasn't staying here. I wasn't going to sit in the cold and watch their Instagram stories. I needed somewhere far, somewhere distinct, somewhere that was the antithesis of their chaotic, loud, superficial vibe. I typed into the search bar, flights to Tokyo. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity that usually only comes after a fever breaks. I spent the morning working, finalizing a project for a client, but my mind kept drifting back to the history of my relationship with Sylvia. It hadn't always been this bad, or maybe it had and I just hadn't noticed. Sylvia had always been beautiful. She had been a local pageant queen in her 20s, and she had never really let that go. When I was born, dark-haired, serious, bookish, she didn't quite know what to do with me. I wasn't a doll she could dress up. Then came Valentina. Blonde, bubbly, pliable Valentina, the perfect mini-me. Sylvia finally had her accessory. As we grew up, the dynamic solidified. I was the smart one, which in Sylvia's dictionary was a polite synonym for the plain one. Valentina was the star. I remembered my college graduation. I graduated summa cum laude. Sylvia spent the entire dinner complaining that the lighting in the restaurant was too yellow for photos and asking me why I didn't wear heels. I remembered when I bought my apartment, a place I paid for entirely myself. Sylvia walked in, looked around, and said, "It's very practical, but don't you want something with more curb appeal?" She didn't hate me, that would be easier. She just found me disappointing. I was a stain on her brand. And now, this brand was her entire personality. At noon, I met my friend Jess for coffee. I told her everything. She actually said, "Vibe?" Jess asked, her mouth hanging open. "Your mother is 55. Why is she talking like a TikTok teen?" "Because she thinks she is an influencer," I said, stirring my black coffee. "She's got 5,000 followers, mostly bots and neighbors, but she acts like she's Kim Kardashian. She thinks this Italy trip is going to be her big break. She's launching a ageless travel series." And Rowan and Valentina. Rowan is an accessory. He's there to hold the bags and look good in linen. Valentina is there to be the younger version of mom. And Dad is just the wallet. Jess shook her head. "And you're going to Japan." "Booked it this morning," I said, a small smile finally breaking through. 2 weeks. Kyoto, Tokyo, maybe a side trip to Hakone. I'm going solo. No itinerary, no photo shoots. Just ramen, temples, and silence. "Good for you," Jess said. "But what happens when they realize they can't function without you? Who's going to translate? Who's going to read the map?" "Not me," I said. "I'm going dark, Jess. I'm blocking their numbers for the duration of the trip. No WhatsApp, no calls. You're blocking your mom. If I don't fit the vibe, I said, leaning back, then I shouldn't be interrupting their content with my tech support, should I? They're going to die, Jess said, but she was grinning. They won't die, I said, but they might end up in a ditch in a vintage Fiat. Later that afternoon, I stopped by my parents' house to drop off my regrets for the late Christmas dinner. I wanted to see the enemy up close one last time. The house was in chaos. Suitcases were open everywhere. Sylvia was barking orders at my father. Robert, no, not the navy blazer, the cream one. The navy clashes with the sunset palette. Rowan was sitting on the sofa, looking at his phone. Hey, Vi, he said, not looking up. Did you see the villa? It's sick. Yeah, looks great, I said flatly. Sylvia breezed past me, holding a stack of wide-brimmed hats. Oh, Violet, did you come to say goodbye? We're so swamped. I barely have time to think. Just wanted to wish you a safe trip, I said. She stopped and looked at me, her eyes scanning my outfit, jeans and a sweater. She sighed. You know, if you really wanted to come, you could have made more of an effort this year. Lost a few pounds, dyed your hair maybe. Gotten into the spirit of things. There it was, the naked truth. It wasn't just the vibe. She was ashamed of me. I'm happy with how I look, Mom, I said quietly. Well, that's the problem, isn't it? She said, giving me a pitying pat on the cheek. Complacency is the enemy of beauty. Anyway, we need to pack. Make sure you water the plants while we're gone, and pick up the mail. She turned her back on me. Valentina, where are the ring lights? I stood there for a moment, watching them. They were like a colony of ants, frantic and busy, completely unaware that they were marching toward a cliff. I won't be watering the plants, I said, though none of them were listening. Bye, Violet, Valentina shouted from upstairs. I walked out, I got in my car. I drove to the airport hotel. My flight to Tokyo left at 6:00 a.m. the next morning. I took out my phone, I opened the group chat, the Amalfi Adventure. I didn't leave the group, that would be too obvious. Instead, I muted it. Then I went to my settings. Sylvia, blocked. Valentina, blocked. Rowan, blocked. Dad, blocked. I felt lighter than I had in years. They wanted a picture-perfect vacation without the practical daughter ruining the aesthetic. They were about to get exactly what they asked for. The silence of a Kyoto morning is different from the silence of an empty room in America. It has weight, it has texture. I sat on the tatami mat of the machiya I had rented in the Jin district, watching steam rise from a ceramic cup of genmaicha. Outside the sliding glass doors, a small, enclosed garden was dusting itself with a light layer of snow. A bamboo deer scarer, shishiodoshi, made a hollow thwack every few minutes as it filled with water and tipped over. Thwack peace, thwack solitude. I had been in Japan for 48 hours. I hadn't spoken to a soul other than the kind, elderly woman who gave me the keys and bowed low, whispering, "Irashimasu." My phone lay face down on the low wooden table. I had turned off notifications for everything except my bank and my travel security apps, habits from my job that I couldn't quite shake. I took a sip of the tea. It tasted like roasted rice and comfort. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the crushing weight of Sylvia's expectations. I wasn't sucking in my stomach. I wasn't worrying if my outfit clashed with the upholstery. I was just Violet. Then the phone buzzed, a single, sharp vibration against the wood. It wasn't a text. It was a push notification from my banking app. Chase Sapphire Reserve, decline transaction. $4,200 at Auto Europa Amalfi. Card is frozen due to suspicion of fraud. I frowned, picking up the phone. Why was my card being run in Amalfi? I hadn't given them my card. Then it hit me. 2 years ago, when we went to France, I had put my card on the family's Hertz Gold profile because Sylvia's card had expired and she threw a fit in the terminal. I had never removed it. They were trying to use my card for the rental deposit. I unlocked the banking app. There were 3 attempts in the last 10 minutes, all declined. A cold, strategic calm settled over me. This was the turning point. I wasn't just a daughter they had left behind, I was the financial failsafe they had forgotten they needed. I opened the muted WhatsApp group chat, the Amalfi Adventure, just to see the timeline. I didn't read the messages, I just looked at the volume. 76 unread messages. The timestamps showed a progression of panic starting 6 hours ago. I switched to my investigation mode. I opened Instagram. I went to Sylvia's profile. Story 1 10 hours ago, a photo of business class champagne. Caption, and we're off. The La Dolce Vita tour begins. Blessed family brand. Story 2 4 hours ago, a blurry video of them standing at the Naples airport rental counter. I could see Rowan in the background looking sweaty and pale. Sylvia was smiling, but her eyes were tight. Caption, minor hiccups with the reservation, but we roll with the punches. Italian efficiency, am I right? Grinning face with sweat. I zoomed in on the video. On the counter, I saw a familiar red folder, the one Dad usually kept the printed confirmations in. It looked thin, too thin. I went to my email archives. I searched for Auto Europa. I found the confirmation from 2 years ago. I realized then what had happened. They hadn't booked a new car. They had tried to modify an old profile that was linked to my expired driver's license and my now-locked credit card. They didn't just need money. They needed a primary driver who was actually present. I sat back, the tea cooling in my hand. They were currently stranded at the rental counter in Naples, likely screaming at an agent who didn't care, trying to charge a car to a daughter they had explicitly excluded because she didn't fit the vibe. I had a choice. I could call the rental company. I could unfreeze the card. I could email them a copy of my old license and maybe, just maybe, talk the agent into letting Dad take the car. I looked at the snow falling in the garden. I thought about the late Christmas dinner in February. I opened my banking app again. I navigated to the Authorized Users section. Select, Sylvia, Action, Remove Authorized User, Confirm, Yes. I went to the Hertz and Auto Europa websites. I logged in. I changed the password. I wasn't just staying silent. I was closing the gates. The trap wasn't something I set. It was their own entitlement, and I was simply refusing to be the cushion that caught them when they fell. I put the phone back down, thwack. By the 4th day, the contrast between my reality and theirs was so stark it felt like we were living on different planets, not just different continents. I had spent the morning walking through the Fushimi Inari shrine. I had hiked to the summit, my lungs burning with the cold, clean air. I ate a soft-boiled egg and a rice ball on a wooden bench overlooking the city. I took a photo, not for content, not for a brand, but just because the light hitting the orange torii gates was breathtaking. I posted it to my personal Instagram. No hashtags, just the location, Kyoto, Japan, and a caption, finally found a vibe that fits. The reaction was immediate. My phone blew up, not with likes, but with a sudden, frantic piercing of my digital fortress. Since I had blocked their numbers, they couldn't call. But Sylvia, resourceful in her desperation, had found a loophole. She had logged into my father's email account, which I hadn't blocked because Dad never emailed, and sent a message. Subject emergency, call US immediately. From Robert via Sylvia. Violet, this is your mother. I don't know what kind of game you are playing, but it needs to stop now. We are stranded in Sorrento. The rental car agency wouldn't take the card. We had to take a taxi, which cost €400 and the driver smelled. We are at the villa and it is a disaster. The heat doesn't work. The owner speaks no English. We can't get the Wi-Fi to connect, so Valentina can't post her partnership deliverables. Rowan tried to fix the boiler, and I think he broke it. I know you changed the passwords to the travel accounts. I can't log in to check the insurance. You need to call me right now and give me the new password and unlock the credit card. This is financial abuse, Violet. We are freezing. Fix this.
Mom.
I read the email twice. The audacity was breathtaking. Financial abuse. She was accusing me of abuse because I wouldn't let her commit fraud on my credit card. I sat on a bench in the Maruyama Park, watching a group of ducks glide across a frozen pond. A few tourists walked by in kimonos, laughing softly. I decided it was time for the first reveal. I wouldn't give them the passwords. I wouldn't unlock the card. But I would let them know exactly where I stood. I hit reply. Hi, Mom. I'm surprised you have service. I thought the Wi-Fi was down. Regarding the passwords, those are my personal accounts. You aren't authorized to use them. As for the credit card, I reported the transaction as fraudulent because I am currently in Japan, not Italy. Why would my card be running in Naples? I can't help you with the boiler or the translation. I'm afraid I'm busy engaging in a cultural deep dive right now. Besides, you were very clear that this trip was for the people who fit the aesthetic. A shivering, angry tech support daughter in a coat really wouldn't match the La Dolce Vita theme you're going for. Use your own credit card. Use Google Translate. You wanted to be the main character, now is your chance to write the script. Violet. I hit send. 10 minutes later, I got a notification from Instagram. Valentina had commented on my Kyoto photo. At Val Lifestyle, must be nice to abandon your family during a crisis. We are literally suffering and you're posting scenery. Mom is crying. I stared at the comment. It was public. She was trying to shame me on my own platform. I replied publicly. At Violet Designs, at Val Lifestyle Weird. Last week Mom said I didn't fit the vibe and that my presence would ruin the photos. I'm just respecting her artistic vision by being 6,000 miles away. Enjoy the villa. I watched the likes on my comment tick up. 512, 50. My friends, my coworkers, even some of our distant cousins were seeing it. The narrative was shifting, and for the first time, I held the pen. The fallout from my comment was nuclear, but I didn't stick around to watch the explosion. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and took a bullet train to Tokyo. For the next 2 days, I immersed myself in the neon chaos of Shinjuku and the quiet dignity of Meiji Jingu. I ate sushi from a conveyor belt. I bought vintage records in Shimokitazawa. I felt competent. I navigated the complex subway system without reading a word of kanji. I figured it out, because that's what I did. Meanwhile, the Amalfi Adventure was disintegrating into a horror comedy. I knew this because I had unmuted the group chat. I didn't reply, but I watched. It was my morning newspaper. Day 5, the disaster timeline. Rowan 10:00 a.m. Does anyone know how to say tow truck in Italian? Valentina 10:05 a.m. OMG Rowan, tell me you didn't. Sylvia 10:15 a.m. H hide. Wall, a stone wall. The side mirror is gone. Dad 10:20 a.m. It's a narrow street. The GPS took us down a goat path. Sylvia 10:22 a.m. Violet, I know you are reading this. We need the insurance policy number from the email archive. The man is screaming at us. He says we have to pay 2,000 euros cash right now or he's calling the police. I sipped my matcha latte in a cat cafe in Harajuku. A calico cat purred on my lap. They had rented a manual transmission car on the Amalfi Coast, some of the most dangerous, narrow, winding roads in the world, with a driver who didn't know how to drive stick, and they had refused the extra insurance at the counter, I assumed, because Violet usually has it covered on her card. But my card was locked, which meant they were liable. I didn't answer. Sylvia 10:45 a.m. Violet, please. They are taking the car. We are stuck on the side of a cliff. Valentina 10:50 a.m. This is literally the worst trip of my life. I hate this. Rowan 11:00 a.m. I think the clutch was already broken. I decided to check Valentina's Instagram. She hadn't posted in 2 days. The content had dried up. However, Sylvia had posted. She had posted a long, text-heavy story, white font on a black background. It's so sad when family turns their back on you, We try so hard to bring everyone together, to create beauty, and some people just want to destroy it out of jealousy. Stranded in Italy because of someone's selfishness. Prayers appreciated. I felt a flash of old anger, selfishness. I opened my laptop. It was time to build the case. I wasn't going to let her spin this. I took screenshots. I screenshotted the "you wouldn't fit the vibe" text message chain from before the trip, which I had saved. I screenshotted the email where I had originally set up the car rental years ago with my money. I screenshotted the banking alert showing they tried to use my card 3 times while I was excluded from the trip. I didn't post them, not yet. I just put them in a folder labeled receipts. Then my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Italian country code, +39. I hesitated. It could be the police. It could be a hospital. I answered, "Hello." "Violet," it was my father. He sounded breathless, panicked. "Thank God, Violet, you have to help us." "Dad," I asked, my voice cool, "why are you calling from this number?" "It's the tow truck driver's phone. Violet, listen. Your mother, she's having a meltdown, a real one. She's screaming at the police. They're threatening to take her in for creating a disturbance. You speak Italian, right? You know the words. Please just talk to the officer. Tell him it's a misunderstanding." "I don't speak fluent Italian, Dad. I just use Duolingo. Remember, you guys made fun of me for doing it at dinner last Thanksgiving." "Violet, please, this isn't the time. Just tell them we're tourists. Tell them we'll pay." "I can't pay, Dad. My cards are locked because of the fraud attempts, and I can't translate because I'm not there." "Violet," his voice cracked. "We are in trouble, real trouble. Sylvia is out of control. She threw her wine at the car." I closed my eyes. I could see it, the shattered glass, the screaming, the absolute refusal to take accountability. "Dad," I said slowly, You stood there and drank your scotch while she told me I wasn't good enough to go on this trip. You watched her hand out 4 tickets. You didn't say a word." I know, I'm sorry. I just wanted peace." "Well," I said, looking out at the neon lights of Tokyo blinking into life. "You wanted peace. You got silence. I am not your fixer anymore. If Mom is arrested, she can use her one phone call to call her lawyer, not her daughter." "Violet." "Goodbye, Dad. Don't call me again unless someone is dying." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline. I had done it. I had severed the final cord. The golden child and the manager were stranded on a cliff in Italy, and the scapegoat was eating sushi in Tokyo. I opened the folder of receipts. I selected the screenshot of the "you wouldn't fit the vibe" text. I posted it to my Instagram story. No caption, just the screenshot. The truth was out, and the silence was deafening. The late Christmas dinner didn't happen in February. It happened 2 weeks after my return from Japan, in late January, at my Aunt Linda's house. My family had returned from Italy early. They had lasted 6 days. 6 days of disasters, culminating in the Fiat incident, a hotel dispute involving a broken bidet, don't ask, and a desperate flight home in economy class because they had maxed out their credit cards on emergency fees. I hadn't seen them since the night I walked out, but Aunt Linda, Sylvia's older, no-nonsense sister, had insisted on a family reconciliation dinner. She invited everyone, my parents, Valentina, Rowan, my cousins, and my grandmother. I walked into Linda's house wearing a silk dress I'd bought in Ginza, an understated, elegant navy blue that fit me perfectly. My skin was clear, my posture relaxed. I felt like a different person. The contrast with my family was jarring. Sylvia looked 10 years older. Her ageless glow was replaced by a frantic, brittle energy. She was wearing a designer dress, but it looked strained. Valentina was pale, scrolling on her phone with a nervous twitch. Rowan wasn't even there. Apparently, they had broken up somewhere between Naples and Rome. We sat at the long mahogany dining table. The air was thick enough to choke on. "So," Aunt Linda said, carving the roast beef, "I heard the trip was eventful." Sylvia put down her fork. Her eyes darted to me, cold and predatory. This was it. She was going to rewrite history. "It was a nightmare, Linda," Sylvia said, her voice trembling with practiced fragility. "Absolute hell, and honestly, it didn't have to be." She looked directly at me. The table went silent. "We were stranded," Sylvia continued, gaining steam, "on a cliffside, in the cold. And when we tried to use the emergency funds, the funds we set up, we found out they had been maliciously frozen." "Maliciously," I repeated, my voice calm. "That's a strong word." "What else would you call it?" Sylvia snapped, dropping the facade. "You knew we were traveling. You knew we relied on that account for the deposit, and you cut us off. You left your own mother and sister to rot in a foreign country because you were petty about not being invited." "Sylvia," my father muttered, looking at his plate, "maybe we shouldn't." "No, Robert," she hissed. "Everyone needs to know. Violet endangered us. It was elder abuse. I could have died of hypothermia." My cousin Mike choked on his water. "Hypothermia? In Italy? In January? It's like 50 degrees there." "It was freezing rain," Sylvia shrieked. "And we had no car, because Violet called the bank and told them we were thieves." "I didn't tell them you were thieves," I said, reaching into my purse. "I told them I wasn't in Italy." "Same difference," Valentina shouted, jumping in to defend her mother. "You humiliated us, Vi. The car rental guy laughed at Dad. We looked like broke tourists." "You were broke tourists," I said. "See?" Sylvia pointed a manicured finger at me. "She enjoys it. She's vindictive. She ruined Christmas, she ruined the trip, and she ruined the brand launch. I had sponsors lined up, Violet. Sponsors." The room was dead silent. My grandmother was staring at Sylvia like she had grown a second head. "I didn't ruin anything," I said, pulling out a small stack of papers. "I just refused to pay for a vacation I wasn't invited to." "Lies," Sylvia stood up. "We never asked you to pay." "Really?" I asked. I placed the first paper on the table. It was the printout of the attempted charges. "Auto Europa, December 29th. $4,200 attempted on my Chase Sapphire card. The card solely in my name." I placed the second paper down. "Hotel Santa Catarina, December 30th. Attempted charge, $1,800. Declined. Reason, cardholder not present." I looked at Aunt Linda. They didn't just want me to unfreeze a shared account. They were trying to charge my personal credit card for their villa upgrade because Dad's card hit its limit. Sylvia's face went from red to white. That was a mistake. We thought it was the family card." "The family card is an Amex," I said. "My card is a Visa. You know the difference, Mom. You used to borrow it for your Botox appointments." A gasp went around the table. "And as for endangering you," I continued, my voice steady but rising in intensity. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the Bluetooth speaker on the sideboard. "I think everyone should hear the voicemail you left me on New Year's Eve." "Violet, don't you dare," Sylvia warned, her eyes wide with panic. I hit play. Sylvia's voice, slurred and screechy, filled the dining room. "You ungrateful little brat. When I get home, I'm writing you out of the will. Do you hear me? You're dead to us. I hope you rot in your apartment. You think you're so smart with your little job? You're nothing. You're ugly and you're boring and you ruin everything." The recording ended with the sound of glass shattering, presumably the wine glass she threw. The silence that followed was heavy, absolute, and suffocating. Aunt Linda slowly put down her carving knife. She looked at her sister with a mixture of horror and disgust. "Sylvia," Linda said, her voice ice cold. "You said Violet abandoned you. You didn't say you called your daughter that." "She provoked me," Sylvia stammered, looking around for support. "She's manipulative. She edited that." "I didn't edit anything," I said. I looked at my father. He was shrinking into his chair, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. "Dad," I said, "you were there, you heard her say it. Are you going to lie for her again?" My father looked up. His eyes were watery. He looked at Sylvia, who was glaring at him, daring him to speak. Then he looked at me, calm, strong, and finally done. "No," he whispered. What did you say? Sylvia hissed. No, he said, louder this time. He pushed his chair back. She didn't edit it. You said it, Sylvia. You said worse. You told the police she stole your identity. Robert, Sylvia shrieked. She's right, my father said, addressing the table, his voice shaking. We excluded her. We treated her like an ATM. And when she said no, we tried to steal from her. That's the truth. Sylvia looked around the room. No one was looking at her. My cousins were looking at their plates. My grandmother was shaking her head. Aunt Linda was glaring. The brand wasn't just damaged, it was incinerated. I think you should leave, Sylvia, Aunt Linda said quietly. This is my family, Sylvia cried. Not tonight, Linda said. Tonight this is Violet's family, you can go. Sylvia stood there for a moment, trembling with rage. She looked at Valentina, expecting her ally to stand up. Valentina looked at me, then she looked at her mother. She didn't move. Sylvia let out a strangled sob, grabbed her purse, and stormed out the front door. The slam echoed through the house like a gunshot. I'm sorry, Vi, my cousin Mike said softly. I took a deep breath. It's okay, pass the potatoes. The fallout was swift and total. In the weeks following the dinner, the brand of Sylvia collapsed. The story of the disastrous trip and the public revelation of her financial bullying spread through our small community. Her influencer friends distanced themselves. Her gym buddies stopped inviting her to brunch. She had built her life on the perception of perfection, and I had pulled the curtain back to reveal the rot. But the real change happened closer to home. 3 weeks after the dinner, my buzzer rang. It was Valentina. I almost didn't let her in, but when I saw her on the camera, she didn't look like the golden child. She was wearing sweatpants, no makeup, and her hair was in a messy bun. She looked like a tired 24-year-old. I buzzed her up. She stood in my hallway, holding a box of pastries. Peace offering? She asked. Depends, I said, leaning against the doorframe. Is there a camera crew behind you? No, she said, looking down. No cameras. I deleted the blog. I raised my eyebrows. You deleted it? Yeah, and the Instagram, I'm done, Vi. She walked into my living room and slumped onto the sofa. I hated it. I hated every second of it. I hate posing. I hate the filters. I hate that I can't eat a meal without lighting it first. She looked up at me and her eyes were full of tears. In Italy, when we were stuck, I was actually relieved, because I didn't have to post. I could just be miserable, and that felt more real than anything we've done in years. I sat down next to her. Why didn't you say anything? Because I'm not you, she said. I'm not strong. I needed Mom's approval. I needed her money. I'm useless, Vi. I don't know how to do anything. You're not useless, I said gently. You're just unpracticed. You can learn. Will you teach me? She asked. Not how to code or whatever genius stuff you do, but just how to be a person, how to book a flight, how to pay a bill. I looked at my little sister. For the first time, I didn't see a rival. I saw a victim of the same woman who had tormented me, just in a different way. I was the scapegoat, but she was the doll. And being a doll is its own kind of prison. Yeah, I said, reaching out to squeeze her hand. I can teach you. Later that week, I met my father for lunch. He looked tired but lighter. I moved out, he said, over a turkey sandwich. I'm staying at a hotel for now. We're talking to lawyers. Divorce, I asked. Separation, at least, he said. I enabled her, Violet, for years. I let her treat you like a second-class citizen because it was easier than fighting her. I realized that in Italy, when she was screaming at that policeman, I looked at her and I didn't recognize her. And then I realized I didn't recognize myself. He reached across the table and took my hand. I'm so proud of you, for going to Japan, for standing up to us. You were the only one with any dignity. Thanks, Dad, I said. It wasn't a magic fix. Years of neglect don't vanish over a sandwich, but it was a start. As for Sylvia, she was living alone in the big, curated house. I heard from Aunt Linda that she was trying to pivot her brand to overcoming family betrayal, but no one was buying it. She was shouting into a void. The final loose end was the money. I got a notification from Venmo a month later. $4,200 received from Robert. Note, for the rental car deposit you shouldn't have had to worry about, and for the flight to Japan. I didn't need the money, but I accepted it. It wasn't about the cash, it was about the restitution. That evening, I sat on my balcony Ooking out at the city lights. I had my laptop open. I was browsing flights again. Patagonia, November, solo trip. Hiking, glaciers, and absolutely no Wi-Fi. I wasn't running away anymore. I wasn't trying to prove a point. I was just living. My phone buzzed, a text from Valentina. Val, I just paid my own electric bill. I felt like a wizard. I smiled and typed back. Violet, welcome to the vibe, Val, you fit right in. I closed the laptop, poured myself a glass of wine. A cheap, delicious red that Sylvia would have hated, and toasted the empty air. The silence was no longer a weapon, it was just peace.